Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Hey, Mitch. I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. I'm your biggest fan.
Why not? That's actually a good one. I kind of like that.
Well, I don't know. I think I just think there'll be a bunch of trolls out there going, "Well, I'm not." Like, well, it wasn't for you. Then whatever. But so we'll keep tinkering.
Yes, they are.
Someone's calling to tell us that was a great idea or not.
I apologize. The phone's in the other part of the room, and I can't run over there.
That's okay. We got some live Foley in this episode. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford.
Let's advertise.
Let's get down to business.
Your Emory. Advertise Emory and Theater Exile. Let's get it out of the way.
No, Emory is in the intro and the outro, so that's fine. Yeah. Oh, that company I work for, Theater Exile. Yes, we got a production coming up. It is called Camp Siegfried. It is about two youngins who fall in love under the guise of a Nazi indoctrination camp that actually existed in Long Island in 1938. It's set in 1938. It is an unfortunately timely piece, but there's love and laughter in it, even though the world that it's in is less than desirable and
the timeliness of it. And I hope this is true. The great thing about theater for me is, as uncomfortable as certain topics are, it allows me to be entertained while I'm thinking seriously. And the best theater, you think of some of the heaviest things I've seen over the years, has changed my life intellectually, and has made me want to investigate more. And rather than just have to watch the news, you get to think and be entertained. So hallelujah for theater that way. And anyway, I'll advertise my book once again, The Business of Broadway, on Allworth Press. Continues to sell well, I am very happy to say, and it's used at a number of colleges. So that's the end of my advertisement for the moment.
Yeah. It's selling like a short stack at TikTok Diner. That's what it is.
At TikTok Diner.
Well, actually, what do they call it? I think it's called the Manhattan Single. Something. Anyway.
All right. Enough. Let's move on to interesting topics. There are many.
Yes. TheaterExile.org. That's theaterexile.org. Great time to be in exile. Be a part of that conversation. Anywho, today we're talking about fandom. And the reason for that is multiple reasons. This weekend, I was in New York, and I did not see you this weekend, but I was in earlier in the week, and we did get to hang out. So that was cool. But I was in New York this weekend for New York Comic Con. And it is East Coast Nerd Central, the West Coast component being San Diego Comic Con.
The show was on the streets,
and it was a great time.
I saw more people in costumes, more superheroes, more evildoers, and when you see a spectacular costume, you don't need to go into a theater. You just stand there and look at them for a while, right?
Yeah. And they're dressed up because they know they're going to get that attention. They're going to have their photos taken. There's so many opportunities to capture great moments, and and just really connect with other people who resonate with these pop culture icons. So we had a great time. We went on Friday, which was great because Saturday was a rainy mess, and I hope everyone who went to Comic-Con on
Well, they're
Saturday still
indoors.
enjoyed themselves and the rest of the weekend. Yes, but there's a lot that happens outside the Javits Center as well too, and I was concerned that some of that would not be as fun, but
I'm
I'm
sure they
sure they
did.
figured it out. There's actually an awning area where all the food trucks are, where a lot of people assemble, and they probably just
Well, a
stayed
similar
there
thing,
instead.
we have
But
Broadway Con, which used to
mhm.
be the very first few years of it, also at the Javits Center at that time, was in January. And I think the second year, there was a massive snowstorm that no one even got there.
Mm.
So, it's like they figured it out. I
Wow.
think they've moved it to July now. So, and it's now in
Huh.
a very large hotel in Midtown. So they moved it out of the Javits Center. They've done a lot of things with Broadway Con. But the thing that ties Comic Con and Broadway Con together are the people who are crazy enough to be crazy and give their all to that weekend. They just want to be there. They need to have this experience. They need to share it with people who also love what they love. It is a club. It's a cult for a weekend. It's an obsession for some people, and some people it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's I never quite understood it. I'm one of those curmudgeons. I mean, I may love the theater. I may love music entertainment and all that stuff, but when, for example, when Phantom of the Opera first opened, it was, even for someone working in the industry, it was difficult to get a ticket, and it was very expensive. So I waited 6 years. It's like everyone else I knew, they
Mm.
spent the money. They spend hundreds of dollars, and this is, 25, 30, this is 33 years ago that they spent these hundreds of dollars for a ticket, which would mean it'd be more like 800 now. And they were willing, and I wasn't. It's
Yeah.
like, I'll see it. It'll be around. I'm okay. And that's my feeling with everything. So I know I don't fit into this fandom idea.
So let me ask you this. Were you not into it? Or were you willing to wait 6 years because you are a New Yorker? And since New Yorkers aren't really the audience for
Not true.
Broadway
And
in
let me
general.
explain. Historically, okay,
Hmm.
we build the business model of Broadway shows that the first 3 months of any show is being kept alive by people living in the tri-state area: New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island, Westchester. It's all whatever in the area.
Well, I should say the the thought process. The
Yeah,
thought is that New Yorkers
but
are
but
not
if you look at
coming as much as they should.
the days of My Fair Lady and Sound of Music, they were massive hits. They only ran 2 years.
Hmm.
Phantom ran
Mm.
33. Lion King is 25.
Well,
Wicked is 20. This is it's never Cats. What that was 18 years. They thought that could never be surpassed, right? And
that is crazy.
fans, that's
What have
people
you
coming.
done since January 26th,
Oh
1988 to April 16th,
yeah, think
2023?
about that. And amongst that time, I've seen the
Yeah.
show twice. I'm talking about Phantom. I've seen the show twice, once
Hmm.
out of town, once in New York. I'm not a giant fan of it. I liked it. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm.
we all have different taste. And that wasn't the one that did it for me. And I apologize to all those people who go back hundreds of, and there are fans. I worked on a show and I guess I could name it, but let's see if we can get away without it. I worked on a drama in which these two priests bought orchestra seats at full price every week for 6 months that the show ran. Every week. We knew them on site. We knew their names.
Wow.
They adored it. And they're priests. How can they afford this? That's all we kept saying. They're orchestra seats. How are you paying for this to be able to come back every week? And they just said this was their favorite show of all time. There are so many people like that.
Who could I ask whether this show is any good? Try the priest.
There you go. and by the way, that's what the first 3 months are about, is word of mouth. If New Yorkers won't go to a show at the beginning, there aren't enough tourists to give it a try, because they're going to Wicked and Lion King and the shows that they know. So the marketing at the beginning is, until we know we have a hit, we've got to get the New York audience in. And that's in the days of Sound of Music and My Fair Lady, there were barely any tourists. It was New Yorkers that went, which is why it only ran 2 years. And they were high-priced, and they were hoity-toity shows. You're supposed to get dressed up before you go. It was very different in the 50s and 60s. You know? So the idea that now we can get obsessed with a show, you know, and I will admit I've seen some shows quite a few times. But anyway.
Yeah.
What shows, you want to list them? What shows have you gone back to more than once?
Well, I mean, the first one that pops up is Rent, of course, because I am a Rent head. But I haven't seen it as many times as, like, you know, die hard Rent heads. I think I may have seen it probably like 6 to 8 times. But it was always, the soundtrack was always playing, and I had a 2-disc soundtrack where for some reason this copy of the disc, like, it would skip over like the middle part of disc 1. So weird, and I could not figure it out for the life of me. And then I got an iPod, and then I got a digital copy. Can't wear out a digital copy.
Buy another copy, right?
Yeah. Actually, someone gave me an unopened 2-disc copy of
that's
Rent.
Good.
And that was great.
Yeah, well,
I don't think
and my problem
anything, but it's
I
just never had a reason to open it.
Show CDs, albums, whatever is at the time, as gifts. The problem is the people I know probably had them already, so I couldn't do it. And otherwise, it's the easiest gift in the world, right? But you know, so people buy their own.
I felt like for the longest time, I felt like Rent was keeping my tank full. You know, I felt like there was something wasn't quite right in my world if I hadn't experienced Rent.
That's a great way to say
again.
I totally get that. I don't think there's anything at this point in my life that does that. But I remember wearing out vinyl records, you know, almost destroying a CD over and over. And it would be in my ears as I got on the subway, and it would be in my ears when I got home, and it would be in my ears before I went to bed. Now there's nothing, you know, it just may be age, you know. I like the live experience. I don't need to listen to it again when I get home.
Well, I did like when I lived in the New York area. I did like walking around the East Village with Rent playing in my ears. I was like, that's where we are. It's like, it's like we should be that, like we should be that specific about areas. We're not like New York is very iconic in that sense, but no one's talking about like, I mean, even Philadelphia is, you know, Philadelphia has its moments, but like there aren't a whole lot of stories like that are set here, and particularly on these
Right.
streets.
Even
These streets are
Hairspray used
iconic because of
Baltimore. It could have
movies.
used Philadelphia, but it used Baltimore.
Yeah,
What's wrong with
yeah.
Philadelphia? Why can't they get their act together? Well, I guess you have 1776.
What? Well, yeah, yeah, and
That's historic.
yes, okay, 1776, yeah, but for the most part, they were talking 1776 is, Philadelphia is
Yeah,
so
of
much
course.
bigger now than it was at 1776, and that pretty much
Yeah.
stayed around the state house, wasn't, and so there was no real like iconic like, hey, that street is still very
Well,
much here,
and
too
if
much.
somebody would, that would be it. If someone could write the show that would create something iconic about Philly, it could change. You don't even have a song,
Hmm.
right?
I think it would have to have. I think it would have to have a
Okay.
sports theme. Uh, Philadelphia is very much a
Well,
sports town, and I think they would have to focus on. I think they would want to focus on one, but they couldn't do it without acknowledging them all. It'd have to be the Eagles. It would have to be the Flyers. It would have to be the Union. It would have to be the
well, I don't
Sixers.
know. I mean, that sports, the fans are crazy. That's the thing. Wouldn't we
The
love
Broad
that
Street
if
Brawlers.
we had the kind of fandom that sports has, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, we do,
Yeah,
but we
this
don't.
is a podcast.
Yeah,
Speak your mind,
uh,
Darnell. Make it clear.
so they're always the so you can always find an article that says, here's what the
Hmm.
arts can learn from sporting events. They talk about how sporting events are um, much more inclusive than you think. Like like a stadium might have a themed day that pulls in people who are not
All right.
necessarily fans, and it'll be like Dollar Dog Day, or like free T-shirt day, or kids get in free, or Pride
Well, again,
nights.
here's something that
Even though.
is intriguing. With the exception of Broadway, with no show in any other city runs that long, right? The idea is you have an audience that
Mhm.
wants to see it, and as it starts to wear down, you either have anticipated that the audience is going to wear down, and you just have it a limited run. We're here for 3 months in San Francisco, or we're here in LA for 2 months, or Kansas City for a week. And in New York, it's called open ended. You just leave it there and you bring in as many people as you can and you hope it runs for years. Well, that's a problem. Why do we even need that?
Yeah.
And shows do tour, although I will say that the experience in New York is different than most tours because of the set and costumes and what they can
Hmm.
bring, and the orchestra, because they have to use local and it's harder to
Yeah.
find and all that other crap. But again, when The Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, all these hit shows were run 2 years, that sounds reasonable. It's a hit. You have 2 years of it. You move on. You bring in a new show. And now half of our theater, not half, because it's after the pandemic, but there have been times where half of the theaters on Broadway are booked solid. We can't bring in new shows. There are only so many spaces.
Hmm.
So where do the new show? Oh, listen, I sound like Camelot. Where do the new shows go? Yeah.
Well, that's that. Yeah, and that's a great question because we're constantly questioning whether we have too many arts organizations or particularly theaters. Like, are there too many theaters? Is that why everything is so spread out, and that's why they're all kind of
You see,
struggling to
and
get
I don't think that's
audiences?
been the
It's like because
question that's being asked recently, and my answer to that is no. But
yeah,
that's not the common
no,
answer.
yeah,
I think most media sources,
hmm
newspapers, blogs, whatever and critics are using that as an excuse. And I think we're losing
yeah,
them for other reasons. One, they're not keeping up with what the audience wants. They're overpriced, which is really hard to figure out what to do about because they need the money. Theater's expensive to put on, and nobody's getting
hmm
rich except some investors on the big hits. So what do we do
yeah.
about it? We're not going to brought up. Now we're going to jump. We're going to jump. We'll go back to fans because I'm really interested. We got to talk Taylor Swift and even Madonna started her tour, and Beyonce's coming out with a movie.
Yeah.
But we've really got to worry about the fact that when a show becomes a hit, like Hamilton, prices go from an obnoxious $250 a seat in the orchestra, with last row being maybe $70 or something like that, which is still a fortune for 2 hours of entertainment, to $1,000 a seat. Merrily We Roll Along, which just got rave reviews with Daniel Radcliffe and Jonathan Groff, and let me not forget that one, Lindsay, what's her last name? Mendez, thank you. I didn't want to forget her. She's wonderful. They got rave reviews. They did great marketing because it started Off-Broadway first and got raves there. And all of a sudden, the ticket prices in the orchestra shot up near $500. And I just am wondering, I'm not going to pay $500 a seat to sit for 2 hours or 2.5 hours for anything. That's the curmudgeon. Maybe fans, well, obviously fans are, because they are buying the seats. It's selling out.
Well, and also, for this, sure, we love Jonathan Groff, and Lindsay Mendez is great, but a lot of people are going to go because
That's right.
they saw Daniel Radcliffe. Yep. They grew up with him through the Harry Potter series, and so now they get to see him on Broadway, and perhaps they did have that fandom for
what?
Oh my God!
For Harry,
am I drawing a blank?
Not for Harry Potter. I was going to say,
How to Succeed in Business.
This is his third Broadway show. It's not like they couldn't have seen him before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in Equus,
actually 4 then, because there was another comedy, which got very good.
Oh yes,
which got very good reviews,
fact.
and he got.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at us.
No, I'm relying on you to remember those things. But I mean, so he's.
I've been following Daniel Radcliffe since he was
Daniel
born
Radcliffe in
in
Equus.
1990.
His fans could see him naked. Tastefully? No, not tastefully. He was naked. He was naked for the entire scene.
I know, but the lighting.
I took my
the
niece,
lighting in Equus.
She saw everything.
A beautiful bluish hue.
It's not like he's standing behind a haystack. He's naked for an entire scene.
I know, and for a long time there was such a scandal. Like, parents were like, I don't know if I want my kids to continue reading these books, and if he's gonna be on stage like that. I'm like, shut up, okay?
How do you want them to learn about it? Better they learn about it from Daniel Radcliffe, right? In a wonderful play like Equus, than finding out from their friends in the backwoods.
Yeah. He's Yeah.
Anyway,
Now we're tongue tied talking about Daniel
yeah.
Radcliffe
So, but
naked on stage.
and being a wonder, look, and Stephen Sondheim is part of the mystique of why these tickets are up there, because this was one of Stephen Sondheim's flops.
Mhm.
And it's flopped numerous times. They've tried it a number of ways. And for some reason, the director of this production got it right. And that's what the critics are saying. So everyone, now that we lost Stephen Sondheim last year, everyone's going, hey, I want to see it done right. And it's, there's some wonderful songs in it and the whole bit, and let's go see it. Well,
so let me ask you this. So Stephen Sondheim passed away, and then every production that came after, was like a hit. And the similar thing happened when Jonathan Larson died, and then Rent became this hit, even though they knew they would love to like retool this if they could, and they never could. And there were like subtle tweaks that they could have made, that they made over time, but they couldn't return to the well to do any changes to that. And I'm wondering if it's like it's his legacy that's making them see it differently.
Well, not having
they
seen
before.
This version of Merrily We Roll Along, I've seen the show.
I'm looking forward to
in
it.
Other versions, and I know why it doesn't work. I mean, there are wonderful things in it, but overall, something didn't work. So I'm fascinated, but I'm not willing to spend $500 to be that fascinated. I will wait, and Daniel Radcliffe will probably leave the show by the time I see it, unless I win the lottery tickets that get me.
I was about to say, you can go to Today Tix and
you'll be in the last row.
Try to win the lottery.
Is not something I want to do anymore, but at least you only spend $40. So that's a good thing. But then again, it may happen. But you have to be available when they give you when you win the lottery.
Yeah, and it's about as easy as getting a ticket to Shakespeare in the Park.
No, Shakespeare in the Park, you can pay money. And you can. You donate to the New York Shakespeare Festival. And all of a sudden, you donate the right amount. Rich people get away with everything. So if you can donate and be guaranteed a seat.
Wow.
Of course, as a reminder, there is no free Shakespeare in Central Park for the first time in 8,000 years because they're renovating the theater this summer.
Renovating the Delacorte.
Going backwards. So the fans, though, that are willing to spend, it's not all fans. Obviously, there are people who want to be able to talk to their friends. I bought a Mercedes and I got $1,000 off. Aren't you proud of me? Or I got to see Merrily We Roll Along when you didn't, and now I have something to talk about. There's some of those, but the fans, the ones who are going to say, I love Daniel Radcliffe, I will see anything he's in and I'll spend any amount of money, which now leads us to the fandom of all fandoms, Swifties.
The Swifties.
I'm going to jump in that a friend of mine said something that struck me about fans. That some of the people, they were talking about, there are a couple of reasons why people would spend that much money to go see a concert. I mean, you're a teenager. Who's allowing you to spend $800? How do you do that? Why do you do that? And the answer was they stand, and then they spend all their time in the audience with their phone taping the show rather than just being involved in the show. And they're saying it's because they want to be her. This is a fantasy about being the person that is in the room where it happened. And that's an interesting notion for some. I don't mean everybody there. But it never struck me that that these teenage girls or young 20s girls want to feel what it, or try to get as close as they can to an image that they hope their life would be like. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, and they're following her life, and I mean, I think what a savvy business person Taylor Swift is. Just hearing about how she you know basically covered her own original albums and produced her version, to because of like shady business deals starting out, I
It's
guess.
not shady, by the way.
And
It's standard,
and
and that's the problem. That's the problem.
well,
Yeah,
because of those deals. And I bet you her fans are like, you know what? We don't need that original. We will buy Taylor's version.
because we
And we
want to
will
be
just
her
buy Taylor's
best
version
friend.
and let Taylor. Yeah, they are besties. Like, I mean, you go there with friendship bracelets. Like, so my coworker, our general manager, um, actually, our general manager sent me a text message one day, asked me, did I have an AMC Stubs account, which is another fandom. If you're a fan of movies, you might have a membership that's to a particular movie theater, and so I have one for AMC. And she asked me, did I have an account? And I said, yeah, what's up? And then I opened the app and it said, you're in the queue, 9 minutes. And I was like, what is this? And but then I had realized, I had heard earlier, because the old man in me heard that AMC's stock had spiked today because Taylor Swift's tour was going on sale. The movie was going on sale, and so I'm sitting in the queue, and I'm like, I'm in the queue. What should I do? And because I thought she needed tickets, wanted tickets. She's like, oh, it turns out I actually got them, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm in the queue. I got like 4 minutes left, and I'm like, I had to make a quick thought in my head, and I'm like, well, I am a media company. Perhaps I should be in the room, and experience it. And so I was like, okay, so Rep
Yeah.
Radio will go to the Eras Tour film. And so I bought tickets, and I went on Saturday night when I came back from New York. And the theater was full of Swifties.
Could you could
Everybody's,
you could you
got
hear the movie,
makeup
or were they
on
all
and
singing
jeans.
along with it, or like? Okay.
No, we could hear the movie. But a lot of people had their phones out. They were like live tweeting and posting. And for the first time, that did not annoy me in a movie theater. It was like there was something about the vibe in this theater where it
Well,
was
I heard on the
acceptable.
news today that
And
they
there were,
said the theater owners were actually encouraging for the first time people to take out their phones.
yeah. And there were so many, they were all young and just enjoying themselves. They were there with their friends, they were there with their families, and there was just so much joy in the room. And my partner and I were just looking around. We have these seats in row D, which AMC theaters, like if it's a new theater, they're all great seats, like not a bad seat in the house. um Enjoyed the show. We really enjoyed it, and I was just paying attention. Like I posted on Rep Radio's Instagram, tonight's experience research. Because I was like, how is she resonating with so many people? And the
Well,
whole
let's
show
go
was
back a
this.
step.
It
I'm
was,
not a Madonna freak in any sense of the word. I have seen her once live in concert many years ago, and
mhm,
to this day, I still and I went because someone took me. I wouldn't. It wasn't my desire.
mhm,
It was the best Broadway show I've ever seen in my life. She put together themes,
mm,
plots, characters that tied songs together. The stage moved, it flipped, the lights changed. There wasn't a moment in there that I wasn't totally involved. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering what we're missing on Broadway for the shows that don't do that. Right? I mean, some of them are wonderful.
Well,
Don't get me wrong.
so I'll say right off, there is, I mean, we're trying our best to like pull away from this sort of mindset, but we needed everyone to be in a certain state of being. Like we needed them to be in a certain mindset to come to the theater. Like you have to be quiet, silence your mobile devices, unwrap your candy. Like you got to sit still. You can't just get up and go. Like, and you didn't really have this freedom that you have in some of these modern productions now. Like I remember when Quentin Tarantino released The Hateful Eight, 70 millimeter, 70 millimeter, and the show had an overture and an intermission. Like, and I was like, what? And it had a program. And I was like, this is wonderful. And we got to get up for 10 minutes, go back to concessions, get more food, go to the bathroom and everything, and saw this like epic production. And, even now, like AMC, for example, has they will bring the food right to you. You can place the order in advance or place the order and have it come right to your chair. And they've got like reclining seats and they're heated and all kinds of things like to make you comfortable in the space so that you feel good. And, Nicole Kidman's iconic AMC commercial has fans of its own.
I may not have seen it
as well. Yeah, if you've seen a show at AMC Theater, there is it's an We Make Movies Better. It's a monologue that Nicole Kidman is the star of, and it was released kind of when theaters started, when we started going back to the theater, but still in the pandemic. And it's so iconic now that like people quote it. And I forget what it was. I think it was a Marvel film or something. Like right at the beginning of it, a guy stood up and recited the whole thing, and the entire theater gave him a standing ovation.
This is, and I hope somebody steals this idea from me, but I, for 20 years, have been fostering this notion that to be different, even more so than movies and television, why can't we put a red carpet outside of every Broadway theater and off-Broadway theater every day? Why can't, right, Klieg lights,
make it a whole to-do,
which are those things that go up in the sky and twirl around. We make it, the experience shouldn't be just that you're in the theater together, being polite and having entertainment thrown at you, but you should have an experience. And that may help be worth $500 sometimes. But and that's what makes opening nights very exciting, because luckily, having been in the industry, I've been to many opening nights, and they are very exciting. Right? It's like, I guess, if you go to a big opening of a movie theater at what used to be Grauman's Chinese, and now I forget what it's called, out in L.A. That was a big deal. It was very exciting, and the limos pull up, and the press are there, and that still happens on Broadway opening nights. But why should it stop? I mean, you don't quite have to do everything. It gets expensive, but you can do some of it. And the theater owners don't seem to care. But maybe a regional theater would do that. You know, somebody just give them more than. And by the way, it still drives me crazy. If they want no noise in a Broadway theater, why are they selling candy that comes in wrappers that make noise? Pick the candy that doesn't
Yeah.
and sell that. It still costs $8. So,
Well,
that just drives me crazy.
I so they do create a little bit of there you do have the opportunity to come to the theater at what is
Mm-hmm.
considered a preview, where it opens on Friday, but you can get a Thursday night ticket, and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be in there with diehard fans. And I think that, along with reserve seating, like removes the sort of chaos that there was in the movie theater, because you're in here with people who know better, who are not going to for the most part, are not going to be those disruptive people that we didn't look forward to before. And so that's been a good thing. I mean, I know that we've done it, for the
Mm-hmm.
whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've gone to every Marvel film, and we've been there preview nights, because they even do things like they give you a commemorative
Nice.
ticket,
Nice.
and they're numbered. So on that night, you get this commemorative ticket. I remember for Star Wars, the Phantom Menace, I think they were selling T-shirts in the lobby, and I remember buying that T-shirt and like immediately regretting it.
Yeah,
But I was just like, how often do you get to do this? But like those things, like they
they do.
create such an excitement. And I guess we do kind of have them, when a show tours. Like, if you're, of course you can do this on Broadway, but when a show tours, there's a lot of merch that you can get, and so that
But
kind of
again,
contributes
unlike
to that
movies,
fandom,
which can be in
you know
10,000 movie theaters on the same weekend, Broadway and off Broadway, and I want to include off
hmm
Broadway in this, they have one theater one night. And if
yeah.
so, an off Broadway theater of
hmm
299 people, or a Broadway theater of between 1 and 2,000, that is nowhere near the potentially the hundreds of thousands that could be watching the movie, and when they're buying merch, walking out and people see it. This is a couple of square
hmm
blocks in New York. You walk out of the theater, 100 people have bought some merchandise and they're not wearing it yet. So what do you do?
yeah.
Right? So, but we haven't, unlike Disney, and I give Disney props, even though I don't want to. Disney, they know how to do merchandise. The big news when and I was part of this when Beauty and the Beast first opened on Broadway. For the first X number of weeks, the show was doing okay. It wasn't doing great, but it was doing okay. But they sold more in merchandise in the lobby of the theater than they did selling tickets to see the show, because they put
hmm
merchandising booths in the main lobby, in the mezzanine, in the balcony, and they had a
hmm
cart outside the
yeah.
theater that people walking by could buy the merch for a show they're not even seeing
Yeah.
it. That all of a sudden opened
Yeah.
up all of Broadway. People went, "Oh my God, if they can do it, we ought to. Look at the money to be made." And then, of course, nobody said, "Let's learn from Disney." They just did it stupidly, and half of them lost money. And some of them, which were hits, learned. But the other great thing that Broadway does that the West
Yeah.
End in London does not do, programs, these playbills, are free in New York because they're paid for by advertising and by the
hmm
show. The show has to contribute. In
hmm
London, the only way to get a program is to buy it. So again,
to
that's a
buy it. Yeah.
souvenir. There's a souvenir
That's
that we
kind of
offer
like
free of charge. It just,
That's also like for football games. I remember at our high
mhm.
school, you had to pay for the program.
Of course, the programs in London
Yeah,
are pretty
I
spectacular.
remember that.
A lot of photos. They're usually
Yeah.
large. Playbills are, they're
hmm
wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I think they're a wonderful magazine. But people don't treat them as if they're souvenirs. They treat them as if they're information.
Yeah. Do you think that's because they've been to a show that doesn't have a
I don't
playbill
I don't know. I
like a
have no idea.
playbill issued playbill? And it's like, because as soon as you get a program that is not a playbill, you can tell that
Mm-hmm.
they've sort of phoned it in, or it's later in the run where it's in black and white instead of in color, and or it's dog-eared because they're trying to
Well,
recycle them, and
let's.
and
And
all
by
of
the way,
that.
while
Yeah, it's
we're just
crazy.
chatting about Playbill, let's give some history here. When
Hmm.
I first started working in the industry, playbills cost nothing for the show. The particular theater turned in their artwork, they turned in their bios, they turned in their information, and the playbills were provided free of charge to the show to give out to the
Wow.
audience because they were all sponsorship by ads. That changed.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
guessing, because I don't know the exact year, somewhere around the mid 1970s, because then they said, well, we can, if you pay a little extra, we can give you a color photograph on the cover of your playbill. That costs us too much, so you're going to pay the difference. Then they said, oh,
Mm.
you've got a giant show. If you want more pictures and more bio space, you can buy an extra 2 to 4 pages and we'll do that. Then they got to the point where they said, well, you're used to paying us. Now we're just going to charge you. And that's where we're at now.
Oh, you're Disney?
Forget.
Okay.
Disney fought Playbill.
Now
They
we're
didn't want to use them.
now,
They said, we can print our own better than
now we're
you
gonna
can.
rake you over the coals.
But
Yeah. Disney was like, anything you can do,
I've
I
been
can
waiting.
do better.
I at least beat you with a song on this particular podcast.
we'll
Yeah.
rush. We rush to
And,
it. Um, oh, but also, the reason I had started out with Comic Con is because Playbill
which is
goes to
wonderful. Good
Comic
for
Con
them.
now, and yeah, so for last year and this year, Playbill's gone to Comic Con and they've set up panels that have been really great. Last year we got to um, sit in a panel for Beetlejuice, and that was fun. For some reason, we thought there weren't going to be a ton of people there. We ended up all the way in the back of the theater. I was like, it's okay. I've seen it twice. Our friend was in the show, Ron McClure. Yes. So this year we sat in the Back to the Future panel, Back to the Future on Broadway panel, and that was really cool to have the cast there and sort of talking about how they were connected to the film and how they got into the show. And it was so interesting because the, you know yeah, a few of them are of a generation where they didn't grow up
Right.
with Back to the Future, but Back to the Future is iconic. And we had argued in the room that probably the best trilogy ever, because everything else is
Yeah.
beyond a
It does
trilogy
go.
now. Like, this is holding firm. There's only 3 movies, and that's it. Um, and it still holds up. That excitement of Back to the Future Part One is just
Yeah,
as
but
exciting
not
every
part three.
time.
Not part
And
three.
my it's so funny because the
Yep.
audience was not giving love to Part Three as well either, even though I think one of the producers may have said that Part Three would probably make a better film. I mean, it'd probably make a better musical. But I like Part Two because it's
Mm-hmm.
futuristic. More of the future is in it, and I like that. But that doesn't mean I don't love Part One as well. Um, but it was really cool to be able to sit and hear them talk about how they got involved and their introductions and so on. So I was glad that Playbill was there, but it also points out that these lines sort of blur. We don't. We do kind of think that the theater fans are just on this island all by themselves, but they're not. Like, theater fans are also sports fans, they're also
Although, and
movie
just to,
buffs,
and this is not correcting you on this, because I do know a lot of sports fans that do love theater. But the shows that have been about sports topics have traditionally not done well. There are exceptions. There are definitely exceptions. Damn Yankees. Well, take me out, damn Yankees.
Take Me Out.
There are exceptions, but there's been a great, oh God, I'm going to forget. David Allan Grier starred as baseball musical. Number One, was it called? First, whatever. I saw it. It was not a great musical, but and this was David Allan Grier before he was famous. This was his first leading role, and he was nominated. He was very good. And The First, I think it's called The First. Yes, Jackie Robinson is what it's about. He played Jackie Robinson in baseball. It just didn't click with audiences. And it could just be sometimes you have a show that isn't great. Who knows? But I would have thought somebody somewhere across the country would have tried to make something out of this. But it hasn't happened. I haven't heard of any revivals. So, moving on. But that's my qualification.
Yeah. Grier began his professional career on Broadway as Jackie Robinson in The First, for which he earned a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actor in a Musical and won the Theatre World Award in 1981.
Yeah, thank you. But get this, you just said he was nominated for featured. He was the friggin' lead. And that's a whole problem with Tony Awards. The producers get to lobby for where they want their actors to be considered. Right? And so you can ask for a leading role to be considered featured because you think you have a better chance of winning against somebody, or vice versa. And the Tony Committee makes the ultimate decision. But I gather since David was not famous yet, they thought it was okay to call him featured actor. Possibly. Then of course, there's The Great White Hope, which was boxing with James Earl Jones. That was an amazing play. I see this is where my age is coming in here. I saw these. And then, of course, Sammy Davis Jr. in Golden Boy, where he played a boxer. That was a musical. And again, the big controversy in those days because it was an interracial relationship, just like Great White Hope was. And I don't know whether that helped or hurt either show, but it certainly made news.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about fandom, and how the excitement of being in these spaces is sort of changing. Like when we're thinking about how, the Taylor Swift film, even though it was in a movie theater, was sort of encouraged to enjoy it as if you were at the concert. Then it thinks about things like, it kind of reminds me of jukebox musicals. And the energy tied to them. And then thinking about like Here
Which
Lies
I have
Love
not seen yet. I'm about to see
Broadway
it this
right
week.
now.
It's suffering. It is not doing well, and everyone I know who has seen it liked it a lot. But it is somehow it has not clicked with an audience, or at least a tourist audience. And I will say, jukebox-wise, because that's not a Here Lies Love is not
tourists?
A jukebox.
Come on.
But it is an interactive thing. And Juliet is a jukebox, which they do encourage the audience to get up and dance at certain times. And then they want you to shut up and sit down. So they gotta play this very carefully. But I will say, and I'm not trying to be a critic, but I thought it was wonderful. I had a great time. It's, nobody's giving an award to this thing for the best anything, but it's a jukebox. The composer, one composer with tons of hit songs that he wrote with different artists, and they put it together like Mamma Mia. They created a plot around William Shakespeare and his wife saying, you shouldn't have ended Romeo and Juliet the way you did. It's a downer. Let's let Juliet live, and let's write, and I'm going to rewrite your play. And so,
was Juliet's name Debbie in your mind? Because it's a downer.
But
it's a downer.
It's a lot. If you know a lot of pop songs that this guy wrote, which you should. I mean, it brings smiles to face every time they use a song in a way that you wouldn't have expected it to be used. That's what makes it fun. A lot of energetic dancing. I have nothing bad to say about it except that it's a jukebox.
So I missed my opportunity to get in the standing room seats for Here Lies
You
Love.
would have wanted to?
There was a promotion on show.
Okay.
No, I don't know. There was a promotion on Show Score, and so I saw it, but I saw it like a few days later.
Luckily, and the only reason I would even consider standing through that show, because those are really the best seats, except you don't get to sit. And I'm, as an older man, I don't want to be standing it's only 90 minutes long. I can handle 90 minutes on my feet. Yeah. That's not a problem. So.
Yeah, but if you can't lean up against a wall or something.
Times Square, New Year's Eve, people are out there for 6 or 8 hours standing up. So.
Crazy. You will never, never.
Plenty of people do, and they survive.
It's right. The weather is always unpredictable. It always seems like it's raining,
or just cold.
Like it's going
to being out there cold. But what are you going to do? But back to fandom and all this other stuff. So I'm one of those people. It's not instinctually inherently in me. I don't understand. I can get excited about something that so Hamilton the first time, I got excited. Chorus line, I got excited. There are things I can get excited. I'll go back and see them again. But you're not going to turn me into this cult. I've got to be there. I've got to see it again. I got to spend more money. I got to touch Taylor Swift backstage. I got to touch Lin-Manuel Miranda backstage. No, I don't care. Part of that may be that I've gotten to work in the industry, so I am backstage. But I think I wasn't like that even before I got into the industry.
That's true. It's like, do you approach fandom differently when you have come through a stage door?
Well, I will tell you, my first show was Pacific Overtures on Broadway in 1976. There were people who came back time after time. It was a very short-lived musical that was wonderful. Again, Stephen Sondheim. I had the experience after having my first job on Broadway. I was there for 1 month in the job, and I was asked to escort Elizabeth Taylor from the audience to backstage and introduce her to everyone in the cast and take pictures and answer questions for her. I spent 35 minutes shoulder to shoulder with Elizabeth Taylor in my 20s. Now, for youngsters these days, she's not, but this was the biggest star. She was gorgeous. I mean, her skin looked like she had no makeup on, stunning. To this day, I remember standing shoulder to shoulder. Literally, our shoulders were together through this whole thing. After that, who cares about anybody else? That's the way I thought of it. The next job, we got another celebrity. Okay, next. Right? And she doesn't know who I am. And, it's not like I even got an autograph. I didn't even try. I was doing my job.
Well, I keep talking about how I was at the drama bookshop and literally walked right past Lin-Manuel Miranda. Totally threw away my shot. But I was like, you know what? It's okay. I know him enough. It's like somebody in here is getting their life, and I'm just like, there's Lin.
That's it. And you can appreciate, again, the Sondheim song. Okay, maybe you can sing this, where the state of the art isn't easy. And the key line is, so I can be on, and the song stops and changes to, so my work can be on exhibition, right? That's the change. The understanding that it's not about the fame, it's about your work. And most actors, certainly not all, we could go back to talk about Suzanne Summers, but most actors that I know want their work to be acknowledged. They don't necessarily have to be recognized in the supermarket. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Suzanne Summers, we mourn her loss today at the age of 76. Those of you who aren't old enough to know what Three's Company was, but she did much more. She was on Broadway.
Come and knock on the door.
How come you're not singing Art Isn't Easy?
For you. Where the kisses are hers and his.
Well
Three's
done.
Company too.
Well done.
Come and dance on our floor. You know why? Because I'm a product of Fox. I'm a product of Fox 29. Like, so growing up, we were literally parked in front of Fox. Here in the Philadelphia area is WTXF TV 29. And all of those shows, like Three's Company, like What's Happening, It's a Living, all of those shows. Yeah, all of those shows. I remember them coming on, like, throughout the day. And there were just earlier times when I think it's so crazy because I feel like they're connected to me before I entered into school. Like, I definitely remember being at home during the day when those shows were on. And actually, the show It's a Living, a later season featured Cheryl Lee Ralph. Yeah, which I didn't know her from anything at the time.
Maybe as a last thing, just one thing to mention about Suzanne Summers, she gave up a big moment in her career and was fired from Three's Company because she insisted that women should get paid the same as men. And she wasn't asking for more. Yeah. She was saying, I am as big a star as the men in these other sitcoms and in this one, and you should be paying me equal or close to equal. And for that, they fired her. And that made all the newspapers, and she stuck by it. Of course, she went on to become almost a billionaire in other ways, but so financially she was okay, but it changed her career, and I give her so much credit for taking that stand.
Well, she did get 7 seasons on Step by Step.
That's true. And I said she did a one-woman, well, she had some dancers, but she did her solo Broadway show that I got to work on, and she was delightful. But so we're sorry to see her go. And
that's funny because last week I was just thinking about her and I was like, where's Suzanne Summers? Like, I know she's probably not working right now, but where is she? Has anybody heard anything?
She turned into a business Sunday. I mean, she has lots of product and, so as she's stayed active. She just wasn't an actress. Right. But anyway, on that note, my friend.
Yeah. Of course, the Fandom episode would bring us way over time. We're over time. The studio is, they're banging on the door. They place like several phone calls. They're like, hey, I got another one in the studio here, which is funny. It's my studio. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Of theater.
But that's the business. That's the business of theater. A working title. I'm Darnell Radford. And we'll see you at the theater in line with all the fans. We'll see you at the stage door with all the fans. We'll see you at previews with all the fans. So remember,
and the pandemic's
that's what previews are for.
You actually can
previews are for the fans.
Backstage or get autographs. The people will actually do that. How wonderful.
Yes. If you are a fan of theater, because why would you be listening if you're not a fan of theater? Go to previews. Theaters need you to go to previews. They help us, spread the word about the show so that it has a successful run.
Fix those few things that may not be as tight as they want for opening night, so you get to be part of it.
You can save a little money and by going to a preview cheaper,
and you got to warn them sometimes.
Well, sometimes, but I always say that theater is more fun with a +1. So you should bring a friend to the theater.
See you soon.
And we'll see you there.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.